All right, guys. Tonight our Bible study is talking about who are you walking with, and it's going over Genesis 5 and 6, mostly chapter 5. But when reading chapter 5, honestly, my main thought was like, what is the point of this passage? And you'll see why in just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and read it. I'm actually gonna read from a different version tonight because it was a little easier to understand. It's the Christian Standard Bible for anyone who wants to know. Sorry, my dog is trying to play with her toy. Okay, focus. Okay, so chapter 5. It's talking about the line of Seth, or the lineage of Adam. Okay, so it starts off in verse 1. It says, "This is the document containing the family records of Adam. On the day that God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. When they were created, he blessed them and called them mankind. Adam was 130 years old when he fathered a son in his likeness, according to his image, and named him Seth. Adam lived 800 years after he fathered Seth, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Adam's life lasted 930 years, then he died. Seth was 105 years old when he fathered Enoch. Seth lived 807 years after he fathered Enoch, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Seth's life lasted 912 years, then he died. Enoch was 90 years old when he fathered Kenan. Enoch lived 815 years after he fathered Kenan, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Enoch's life lasted 905 years, then he died. If you see a theme, let me know. Kenan was 70 years old when he fathered Mahalalel. So sorry if I mess up these names. We're going to say Mahalalel because that's somewhat close. Kenan lived 840 years after he fathered Mahalalel, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Kenan's life lasted 910 years. Then he died. Mahalalel was 65 years old when he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived 830 years after he fathered Jared, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Mahalalel's life lasted 895 years, then he died. Jared was 162 years old when he fathered Enoch. Jared lived 800 years after he fathered Enoch, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Jared's life lasted 962 years, then he died. Enoch was 65 years old when he fathered Methuselah. We're going to say Methuselah. And after he fathered Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Please pay attention. So Enoch's life lasted 365 years. Enoch walked with God. Then he was not there because God took him. Methuselah was 187 years old when he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after he fathered Lamech, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Methuselah's life lasted 969 years, then he died. Lamech was 182 years old when he fathered a son, and he named him Noah, saying, "This one will bring us relief from the agonizing labor of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." Lamech lived 595 years after he fathered Noah, and he fathered other sons and daughters. So Lamech's life lasted 777 years, then he died. Noah was 500 years, and he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, so like I said, what is the point of this passage? Okay, we just have like this whole genealogy. Why should I care about the genealogy of Adam's family? Like, why? More importantly, why is this passage placed right after the first murder in the Bible? So Cain murdered Abel out of jealousy. Let's just see who else was born into this crazy family. Like, I'm just confused as like the direction of all this, you know? So the more I read, the more I realized the importance behind this passage, and I actually could not get enough of it at that point. So I've just got, I guess, 5 points that I really want to go over about this passage, and I promise you it's going to blow your mind. So please get ready. Okay, the first one is where you come from matters. Okay, it doesn't define you. That's not what I'm saying. It matters, but not to define you, but to encourage you. So why does it matter? It's a part of you. Not just who your family is. That's not quite what I'm talking about here. The things you've gone through, experienced, and seen, every heartbreak, achievement, letdown, big life checkpoints, they all matter because they all created you. They formed you. They shaped you. They beat you down. They built you up, but they never destroyed you. Okay? So for those of you who know me to do this, okay, my favorite thing to ask people, strangers, this is literally one of my first questions that if in an appropriate setting, I ask them. And it's their life story. That's my favorite thing to go over with somebody. I don't care if we've only known each other for 5 seconds or 5 years. I will eventually ask you when I find God letting me know to ask. When I ask, I want beginning to end, okay? I never force someone to tell me what they don't want to. It's not like I know any of that anyways. Like, you can tell me what you want. I don't know your life. That's why I'm asking. The reason why I ask is because I have always thought, like, how amazing it is that God had me meet this person that's right in front of me right now in their life, in my life, and I just want to know why. Why now? Like, why now are we just now crossing roads? And sometimes that gets answered, and other times I'm simply left with, like, trusting the Lord's plan in all of it and knowing that it's for a reason, and I just have to be okay with that. And sometimes I am okay with that. I can be okay with that because they are amazing people that I get to meet. But your story, your lineage shows me what you've been through, why you lift your head a little higher or a little lower. It helps me know how to best encourage you and support you because I know some of your past. So in verse 2, it says, Adam fathered a son in his own likeness. In his own likeness means we were born into sin, okay? Into the ways of our family, crazy or not, the sin, the wickedness. We were born into it. We were born fallen. The question we have to ask ourselves is, do we stay in likeness with our past, or do we make the decision to stand apart from it? It's our choice. So will you let your family's history, will you let your bad habits, past mistakes define the rest of your time here on earth? Or will you pick up the cross and walk on a different path? Okay, that's my first point. Second, it's not about length, but depth. Ooh, I love this. Okay, in this genealogy, each person comes to an end, if you didn't catch on. After every one, after they fathered so many, it says, then he died. Okay? Matter of fact statement, it will happen. It says this in King James, it says and he died. Just one word, then and then and he died, period. The end. It's gonna happen. There's one exception. Enoch walked with God, then let's see if I can, where is it? Then he was not there because God took him. Enoch walked with God, then he was not there because God took him. It never said, and he died with Enoch. Enoch, the son of Jared, was carried away to God in a miraculous way. Miraculous way. The phrase walked with God speaks of a true, deep relationship. Walking with God means walking by faith, walking in the light, and walking in agreement with God. Okay? After walking like this with God, it was as if like one day God told Enoch, you don't need to walk home. Why don't you just come home with me? And just knowing that perspective is just so beautiful, because that's the type of image, like, when my time comes, like, I just want that to happen. I don't want it to just be, she died, you know? Like, I want to be, like, walking with God through all of that and to my forever home. So, and there's this, because I Google a lot when I start doing these Bible studies, but there's this Baptist preacher named Spurgeon. He actually lived in the 1800s, and on these particular verses, they're incredible, just absolutely remarkable, some of the things he has to say, and I'm going to go over just a few of them. I tried to cut it down, and I just got really excited about it, okay? But he says, "You cannot consciously walk with a man. We know that he is there. We hear his footfall." Wait, just kidding. Let me try again. "You cannot consciously walk with a person whose existence is not known to you. When we walk with a man, we know that he is there. We hear his footfall. If we cannot see his face, we have some very clear perception that there is such a person at our side. If I wish to find a man's most familiar friend, it would surely be one with whom he daily walked. In walking, friends become communicative. One tells his trouble and the other strives to console him under it, and then imparts to him his own secrets in return. If men walk contrary to God, he will not walk with them, but contrary to them. Walking together implies amity, friendship, intimacy, love, and these cannot exist between God and the soul unless the man is acceptable unto the Lord." Enoch's life has no adventures. It's not it sorry. By no adventures, I mean that there's like nothing like major exciting happening, you know? But is it not adventure enough for a man to walk with God? What ambition can crave a nobler existence than abiding in fellowship with the eternal? And that's what Spurgeon had to say, and I just thought that was really cool. But I want us to now look, because what I originally had said is it's not about length, but about depth. And here I am just talking about Enoch, okay? But the reason why I'm talking about him is I want us to look at how long he lived, okay? So everyone else lived in the 900 range, okay? But when you look at Enoch, he lived only 365, and I say only, but that is still a very long time. But why is it less than everyone else? Everyone else did live a long time, but did they walk with God? God chose Enoch. Enoch lived the shortest amount of time, yet he lived the richest out of everyone because of who he chose to walk with and was rewarded for that in the very end. Sorry, I'm also sick and have a sinus infection. I'm trying really hard not to sneeze. Okay, moving on. So, third point. God ultimately brings rest and comfort. I cannot wait for the end of all this to bring it all together for y'all. So, we see this whole lineage, all of Adam's family, a list of names. If we didn't see these names as people, but battles we have faced, overcome, and faced again, they all lead to Noah at the very end, right? Noah's name means rest and comfort. I want you to look at how strategic God is. He has all these names, these battles, if you will, listed. If you're fighting heartbreak, loneliness, the unknown in a season, change, struggle, anxiety, whatever it is, it's battle after battle, and then you get to Enoch, right? Enoch walks with God. Now look at where Noah's name is at. It's 2 names after Enoch. Yeah, you still have battles to face. Those will never end, whether you're walking with God or not. But your perspective, your feelings, your thoughts can change when you start walking with God through them. When you start walking with God, it then brings you to Noah. It then brings you the rest and comfort. And I want you to realize that, like, battles are battles, and they're going to be rough, they're going to be hard. But isn't it nice to walk with somebody through them? Okay, my 4th point. When you can't overcome it, God floods it. And like I said, I'm not going to read all of chapter 6 because that's overwhelming. You can read it on your own. I highly suggest it. It's a very familiar passage. It's talking about just Noah building the ark. And God literally lists the descriptions, like, to the T of how to actually build this thing. So God finds favor in Noah and has him build this ark before God floods the earth, right? Yes. God wanted to flood the earth and start over. He was so hurt and felt so much grief over how humanity looked. The world was covered in sin and wickedness at this point in time. And there are a few verses that I'm going to go over here and there, but I just didn't want to go over all 22 of them. Okay, so bear with me. But in verse 5, sorry, I am going to have to find these through here. Verse 5, get ready. Okay, verse 5. When the Lord saw that human wickedness was widespread on the earth, and that every inclination of the human mind was nothing but evil all the time. Verse 5 reveals the true nature of man's heart. This heart was only evil continually. This is actually a recurrent teaching of Scripture, and it defies the world's most misguided notion that mankind is inherently good. We're not inherently good. If it wasn't for God and his commandments and his baseline for things, we wouldn't have any real reason to be moral. So, my favorite verse actually, though, is the verse 8. Verse 8 says, Noah, however, found favor with the Lord. But my favorite one is actually the King James version of it. It says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Yes, favor means grace. And I love the word favor, but grace is my favorite word. God was offering us grace from the very beginning. We now know that Noah's name means rest. In the midst of the world's unprecedented wickedness, Noah stood out as radically different. Radically different. This forces us to ask, what was different about him? What was it about Noah that brought him that favor and grace of God? Noah was perfect in his generations, okay? Does this mean he lived a perfect life? No. No, there was only one person that lived perfectly, and that was Jesus when he was on earth. God didn't find Noah to be perfect in every sense of the word. He found Noah to be righteous. Noah was blameless among his contemporaries. The same was said of David, who kept his life so blameless that his enemies could not find any charge to bring against him. So, I'm going to change the perspective of this passage, though, okay? The world then was covered in sin and wickedness, but let's apply that to our own lives, okay? That's how we bring it to our life in real time. We are not meant to overcome and conquer things on our own, okay? We're not meant to do that. That is not how God created us. God built us for dependency. When we try to do something on our own, we normally fall flat on our faces. At least that's true of myself. Okay? When I start to take things in my own hands, I promise you 9 out of 10 times they're going to fail. And that one time, it was just God being nice. He was like, let her have this one win. Okay? So, the world was overwhelmed with sin and wickedness. Your life may be overwhelmed with sin and problems, challenges, hurt, brokenness, anxiety, depression, you name it. There can be a lot going on in our lives that we very rarely will share with a single soul. And God is saying, let me flood it. Let me put an end to it. Is that not amazing? But it's more than him just asking to just flood it, okay? God is a forgiving and loving God. He is. But he will not woo us forever. There is a point where he will say no more. He has reached his no more point. He's ready for a flood. He's ready to start over. God will flood it. What he is more of asking is, let me help you build an ark. Let me lead you and guide you. Let me be your foundation. Let me be the ark. Let me. If you don't let him, you will drown with the rest of your problems. And God wants to pull you out of the waters. He's wanting to pull you out. But you got to be willing to let it. And most of us are probably thinking, oh, so sorry. Most of us are probably thinking it's not that easy, or what's the catch? And guess what? It's not that easy, and there is a small catch. Look at what Noah did for God to work. It's two things. And I'll go over them, okay? So, in verse 9 and 10, well, we'll just do 9. It says, "These are the family records of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among his contemporaries. Noah walked with God." Now, if we go down to, we'll do 21 and 22. "Take with you every kind of food that is eaten. Gather it as food for you and for them. And Noah did this. He did everything that God had commanded him." Two things. Noah walked with God, and Noah did everything that God had commanded him. There was not a single question by Noah. There was not a single complaint. There wasn't a single hold up. You want me to build a boat for a flood that we don't even get rain here? He never once just went like, redneck ghetto, whatever you want to call it, on Jesus or God. He was like, listen, he just did it. I do that with my own parents. I can't do that. I ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. Why do you want me to do this? But anyways, moving forward. We asked at the beginning, right? Why did God choose Noah? Why did God walk with Noah? Why did Noah find favor and grace in God? Because Noah walked with God. Noah returned the favor. He obeyed in every sense of the word. And in verse 18, "But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives. You are also to bring into the ark 2 of all the living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you, 2 of everything." And it lists other kinds, and it gives further instructions. But in verse 18, God establishes a covenant with Noah. Noah and his family would be preserved, but would also enjoy the provision and protection of a covenant relationship with God. This is the very first mention of covenant in Scripture. Genesis chapter 6, first mention of covenant. And you've already had like a murder, you've already had Adam disobeyed. He totally did not obey, and neither did Eve. She's not getting away with it either, don't worry guys. They didn't obey God. And God is telling you today that if you let him, he will protect you and let you see him work in your life if you just let him be your ark. If you obey him and walk with him, he promises to always be there for you. And that's he was promising it from the very beginning. And I just think that's so amazing. But get ready, because it's my last point, 5th point, and then we're done. And I hope your minds really are blown by just this simple passage and a half, we'll call it, since I'm using a little bit of 6. But going back to 5. So, I labeled this one as just Remez, okay? And I'm probably saying it very wrong. It's R-E-M-E-Z, Remez. Remez means a hidden message. And I labeled it that because if you take a deeper look into chapter 5, the lineage of Adam, this is just how cool and spot on God is. Like, this chapter is right after the first murder in the whole Bible. And by the way, after Cain murdered Abel, God still was giving him pieces and bits of grace and trying to give him that opportunity to confess, and each time Cain never did. He just walked around the truth. And God has this message in this passage, and okay, let's move forward, okay? I want us to look at each of the names in this passage. That's just the cool part. So, you have Adam, okay? He means man. Adam means man. Seth means appointed. Enosh means mortal. Kenan means sorrow, and please write these down, please. Mahalel means blessed God. Jared means shall come down. Enoch means teaching. Methuselah, his death shall bring. Lamech means despairing. And Noah means rest or comfort, right? If we put these names in the exact order that they were mentioned, we get this: man is appointed mortal sorrow. But if the blessed God shall come down, teaching that his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. Sorry, my dog made a noise. Is that not amazing? Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but if the blessed God shall come down, teaching that his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. If those names were in any other order, we would not get that message. Please tell me how good God is. I'm just like, okay. And take a look at this. Enoch was the one who walked with God, right? What does his name mean? Teaching. Enoch is teaching us how we should live our lives by walking with God. Hidden in the meaning of names in the genealogy is a beautiful presentation of the gospel of saving grace. This is just proof that the Bible is divinely written, and the fingerprint of the Holy Spirit is found on every single one of these pages. And I'm just astounded every time that I read a passage like this and there's something like that, something so small, but it goes such a very long way. That is all I have for you guys tonight. And I hope y'all really enjoy this message. Please go back and read this because it's mind-blowing. It really is. I do have a prayer request. I posted a while back about one of my patients that I had that was really, really sick and in a lot of pain. She went home about a week ago, and I just got told tonight she passed away on Monday. And she was an incredible soul. Keep it together. And she knew it was coming, but she was struggling to accept it. And this lady never once had her smile fade. That's what me and the nurse who told me we're talking about tonight. She never once had that smile fade of hers. But her family was so in love with her. Not just her husband, her kids. They were just in awe of this amazing lady, and I was too. She was phenomenal. And if y'all could just be praying for her family. She at least was at home, surrounded by her friends and her family. And I did get to see her when she left the hospital. She shouted and she said, "Nicole Lee, come give me a hug." So I got my little piece with that too. But just please be praying for her family. They really need it. But thank you guys for everything that y'all do. If you guys ever need anything, just please reach out. All right, bye.